What's up, you guys? My name is Tracie, and welcome to Tracie Unfiltered, where I'm going to share my story with all of you. My story kind of has a lot of different aspects that I think would be really important to share with people, um, because as I went through a lot of these, I felt really alone, like I had nobody to talk to, nobody who would understand the things I was dealing with. So my hope is that maybe by sharing my story, that somebody somewhere will get something from it. And today we are going to start with part one, where I'm going to tell you more about my growing up, how I was, things I dealt with as a child and into my teen years, up until I became homeless at 16. So I grew up in Pennsylvania. Uh, Gosh, I am 42. So it was very different when I was little than it is today, but I still have memories of being very little. I have memories of going to the movies when I think I was around 2 years old. I still remember our very first home. We moved into where my mom lives now when I was 4 years old, and I have a good bit of memories from prior to that in our house where we used to live. I remember silly things like the sound of this ball. Like we were outside playing and a storm was coming in, and there was this rubber ball, and it made this certain sound, and I still can picture it in my mind. I went onto the porch and was playing with this ball, and my dad was like, "Everybody needs to get in the house because it was getting really bad out." And my sister was riding her bicycle, and she got her toe stuck into the spokes of the bike. I remember my second birthday. I still remember that birthday party, and I can still hear the sound of, because again, it was storming. I remember the sound of there was a chandelier over our kitchen table, and it would make this tinging sound when it would get really bad out. And I still remember all of that. I remember moving into where my mom lives now. Um, the house still isn't there. She rebuilt, but I still remember all of that. And I had a somewhat decent, childhood when I was little. My mom and dad, my dad was a world champion in a sport of some sort. I guess you would call it a sport. He was He hunted dogs, and he became a world champion doing that when I was probably six-ish. And it was something my mom and dad both did. They're in magazines and all kinds of stuff from when I was little. I remember there would be these big trophies that were taller than me. And then eventually my dad went into where he would train dogs, he would breed them. He had a whole kennel going on at the time, and we would have people in and out constantly. There would be people coming from all over the world. It was crazy. And they would camp in our yard, or my parents would, have them staying with us while my dad would help, with breeding their dogs or whatnot, because a lot of people wanted to breed with our dogs because they were such good hunting dogs. So it was an interesting childhood, to say the least, to say the least. Um, Up until around, I would say I was around 10 years old when I started to notice that my mom and dad didn't really talk a lot or get along a lot. It just seemed like they were real distant, not super friendly to each other. But my dad wasn't always super friendly to us. But my dad was my hero. I loved my dad with all of my heart, and I would follow him around everywhere. He also drove tractor trailers for a company. I'm not going to say the name, but he didn't do over the road, but he worked this shift. I remember he would be up at 3 in the morning, and he would be back later in the afternoon because his drive was pretty far. And I wanted to be special to him, I guess. I tried so, so hard for his love and attention. And I would get up on school days, I would stay up and make him breakfast and his coffee and have it all ready for him. So at 3 in the morning when he would wake up, he would come out to his coffee made and breakfast for him. And I'd pack lunches for him. It just, I never felt like I could do enough. When I was 11, I got really sick. I not every day sick, just I was at school and we were walking up from lunch and we had 6 stories to go up to the floor that we had to be on. And all of a sudden, as I'm going up the stairs, I get this excruciating pain in my stomach and I dropped to the floor. I don't even remember how I got to the nurse's office, but I know I ended up there and I was vomiting so violently that I would black out. And I remember being left alone in the restroom and blacking out and hitting the toilet. And at the time, my mom worked at the school that I worked at. My mom eventually became a teacher, but at that time, she just was an aide. She worked in the school as an aide. And every school I went to, she moved along with me. And this point, I was in the middle, or well, I was in the intermediate school, is what it's called. And they had called my mom, and she had come down, and they made her call my dad to come get me because she didn't want to leave work. So my dad come and got me and took me home. And these were in the days where you could call your doctor and talk to them on the phone. And he called the doctor, and the doctor said, "You need to get her to the emergency room. It could be her appendix." So they take me to the hospital, and they do like an ultrasound to look, and they couldn't see anything. They couldn't tell anything. They couldn't even see the organs that they needed to see. So they rushed me into surgery, thinking that my appendix may be ruptured. And I remember all of it. I remember going back. I remember them telling me to count and all the things. And when I come out, my mom was there and she was trying to braid my hair, but I had tubes that were going down my throat and stuff, so I couldn't talk and I panicked. And the nurse come in and she was like, "Oh, you need to calm down. You got to calm down." So I calmed down and they ended up taking the tubes out and the doctor come in and was talking to my mom and he was telling her what had happened in the surgery. And when they opened me up to do my appendix, they found a tumor that had been growing on my left ovary the size of a large Kleenex box, and that's what he picked up was one of those long Kleenex boxes. He said it had started on my left ovary and had grown clear over, my abdomen. And that's why when they did the ultrasound, they could not see anything because it was blocking the view. And they said that, we couldn't save the ovary. We had to take that. We took her appendix and we took the tumor. We won't know if it's um, cancerous or not cancerous until we do a biopsy on it. So they did, and it turned out to be not cancerous. So that was good. And for the next 6 weeks, I had to lay on the couch out of school, and I had staples all up and down my stomach because back then it wasn't laparoscopic like it is now. So you get this lovely big scar at 11 years old. I still have it to this day. I hate it. It is a horrible reminder for me. It bothers me a lot. It bothers me a lot. When that happened, I said, I'll never be able to like wear cute clothes, that that show your belly button because my belly button looks weird now. And I had a whole, it's been something that has been a problem my whole life with my self-esteem and confidence. So I remember I was laying on the couch. It was when OJ Simpson, the whole OJ Simpson thing happened with Nicole Brown and is it Ron Goldman? And I remember watching the chase on TV as it happened, and I remember watching the Waco thing on TV. So I was out of school for a long time, and I finally went back, and something changed in me. I don't know. I don't know if it was the lack of compassion from my parents when I was down or what, but I started to get into this really dark place, and I wanted to look at. And at that time I had beautiful, beautiful long hair. It was about down to here, and it was so thick and shiny and perfect. It was so gorgeous. I cut all of it off, and it was probably as short as it is now. I cut it all off and dyed it black. And at this point, I'd moved into middle school, and my dad would pick me up. And the way that the parking situation was is that the parent pickup was down in this low parking lot, and you had to come over a hill. And I'd come down the hill the one day and walked up to the truck, and my dad was like, "I didn't know that was you coming down the hill. I thought you were a boy." And I was like, wow, like it crushed me. It broke my heart. He would make comments about me. He would call me fat. It was just, and I still fought for that love. I was seeking something from him. Um, then it around, things just got bad in general. I got in trouble. I had went to a friend's house and he did not like her at all. He did not like her. And I don't know why, because I met her when I was in third grade. We were little kids, but he did not like her. And I went to her house and her older sister was having a party. I smoked weed for the first time and I got caught. My dad showed up and took me home and pulled me out of school the very next day. He blocked her phone number from our house. I had no way to talk to her no more. I wasn't in school anymore. He made my mom homeschool me, and that just completely destroyed me. I didn't have friends anymore. I had nothing. But my mom, what she would do was sneak letters. She would have me write a letter to my friend, and then she would mail them. And when I'd get a letter back, she would sneak them to me. And I'd hide them in this post so that he couldn't find it. My dad was just, it just felt cruel. But my mom was very distant and not super motherly at all. I've found out since then there were times where I had gotten hurt and she was like, "You're fine, you're fine." I've since found out like there were bones that were broken. I have old healed, breaks and things like that that I've found since. And she just was not a motherly person. And it was hard. It was hard. But I started to notice the tension getting stronger and stronger in the house. And eventually it blew up. And I remember my mom lost it on my dad, and she had started saying things about him cheating. And the one day I forget why that she was in my room, but he had and come back from work and came into my room and started fighting with her. And it was to the point they were standing like in each other's faces, and I got between them, like squeezed myself between them. And he had grabbed her by her neck and said, um, "Are you going to tell her or am I?" And my mom goes, "Well, why don't you tell her how you're fucking the girl at work?" And they were getting divorced. And I don't know, I almost felt like a relief, but I didn't know it at that time that that's what was going on. I found that out on my 16th birthday. Um, I had been wanting a car for so long. I could not wait. I used to drive in the driveway because we had a long, big driveway, and I would we had an extra car that sat, and I would drive it around the driveway. And he would let me drive once in a while down our road because we lived on this backcountry road. And I remember even when I was little, he would sit me on his lap and show me how to drive. Well, I knew how to drive a stick before I knew how to drive. And I was so excited. So I remember I wanted a Volkswagen Bug so bad. I wanted one so bad. And I would find them and I would show them. I'd be like, look, Dad, look, there's one for sale. I'm almost 16. And he never paid no attention to me. Well, on my 16th birthday, I woke up and my mom was planning to take me to get my driver's permit. And back then, you could get your license. I think it was you had to wait for it to come in the mail. You had to wait for this paper to come in the mail, and you could go get your license immediately. Well, on my 16th birthday, we went and got my permit, and my dad was furious. He told her, don't do it. I don't want her to have a driver's license yet. And she went and took me anyway. We got it. I passed my permit. And when we got home, I was so excited. She let me take the car with my cousin, who was over 18 at the time, and we went and just had a good time. And when I come home, we had a birthday party planned for me that night at my aunt's house, and he hated that family. He hated my aunt and uncle. He hated my mom's whole family. So he didn't want to go. He said he wasn't going to the birthday party. So me and my mom and my sisters all went and had a good time. It was a nice birthday party. And when we come home, my dad was gone. All his things were gone. He had left. He had left on my birthday. And for a long, long time, I blamed myself for it. I thought it was my fault because I had gotten my license and wanted to drive and have freedom. And he was furious and he left us. It took me a long, long time to realize that that wasn't my fault, that it was kind of maybe just the straw that broke the camel's back with him because he was leaving anyway. It's just a shame that he decided to do it on my birthday. Um, so yeah, that is my first 16 years. Nothing too exciting. It's just the start. Um, but what all is to come, that's a different story. After this, I became homeless. I ended up pregnant at 17. I got into a relationship with somebody who was not good. He was a drug dealer, he was abusive, and he nearly killed me. I ended up with I believe I was charged with over 50 felonies at one point, and then I ended up in a lot of trouble for that. Spent 10 years of my life on some sort of supervision through the state or county, and eventually became a drug addict and went into recovery. So we're going to talk about all of those things coming up, but I'm going to be doing this in parts. Um, you just got the first part. Part two will be probably 16 through early 20s, and I I feel a sense of relief sharing this stuff. I think it's a bit cathartic for me because I've not really shared a lot of stuff that I've been through in my life. There are some very sensitive topics that'll be discussed in the coming videos, but I wanted to start here in the little bit of a milder part of it all. And yeah, I look forward to sharing the rest to you all. So keep an eye out. Make sure you hit the follows, the likes, the subscribes, the hearts, the shares, all the things. And I'll be seeing you guys real soon with part two of my story. All right. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you all so much, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.